Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Hope you're doing well. Well, today was a sense of relief for me. Was it for you? Because what I was expecting didn't happen. If you followed the memory stocks today, if you followed the market today, you were probably expecting to see a massive sell-off today because all the signs and the signals were pointing that way. After I dropped my video last night, I had immediate comments that President Trump's speech was re-escalating all the fear and anxieties in the world. We started to see oil go up again. The VIX moved up slightly last night, and all of the stocks started to sell off overnight. The Nikkei 225 was down. If we looked at the memory players, there was significant pressure on those stocks in the after hours. The same with tech stocks. And it looked as if all of the gains that we put up for Tuesday and Wednesday were going to be evaporated overnight. It looked as if we were going to head into that opening bell and face immediate pressure and see these stocks get pushed further down going into a holiday weekend. And that would have been incredibly disappointing. It would have been a big loss for the momentum that we started this week, but it didn't happen. That was the sign of relief for me as I was watching the market, as I was watching the memory stocks. It was amazing to see them respond after initial pressure. At the opening bell, they all faced pressure and shot down immediately, but they found support and they rose again. They got back up to where they were yesterday, and some even grew today, despite all of the noise, despite all of the risks, despite the headlines that we saw in the market. That, to me, is a real sign of conviction in the group. We saw it also in the tech sector. To me, it's a sign that the market is starting to find its legs again. We're starting to see a foundation, a strong foundation get built again. Are we potentially getting ready for a bull run again? I think we're getting close. I think the market is digesting all of the noise. It digested the comments that we saw from President Trump last night, and it looked back at the headlines that were in the market prior to that there is a time frame or a timetable for this conflict to end. And that's what the market is looking for. And I think that's what we saw today. I think that was one of the signals we saw overall. So we're going to dive in and take a look at the stocks in particular, because an interesting thing also happened today. They all didn't rise together. We saw two stand out above the others. So there's still a bit of this capital rotating back into the memory trade, but being a bit selective. I called it being a little finicky yesterday, but being a bit selective. Today, it's selectively rotated back into SanDisk and Seagate more than the other two. We're going to talk about why that is. I'm going to show you some headlines and show you some sentiment in the market and give you some reason why I think capital rotated back into those two, because they feel it's a safer play right now overall. But let's dive in and take a look at how the market performed. If you haven't done it already, hit like, hit subscribe. Let's talk about the market overall first, and let's show just the tech sector. So as I mentioned, if you guys look across the top of your screen, first of all, this was to me probably one of the most surprising things today. Look at the S&P 500 was up. The Dow was down slightly, 0.13, and then the NASDAQ was up today. For all the pressure we saw coming in and what we expected today, that's an amazing outcome for me. I will take that as a bullish, as an optimistic sign to see two of the three indexes up. We see the VIX now down over 24. You can see here on the screen. So gold is down. People rotating back out of that. They definitely rotated back into tech today. If you look at the one-day performance here for tech, the tech sector was up 0.77. S&P 500 was up 0.1, so significantly outperforming what we saw in the indexes. And let's drive in and take a look at all of the sectors within tech itself. We have everything from semiconductors down to electronics and computers down here. So we know semiconductors are the massive weight. It's 36%. I actually saw that. I don't remember it always being 36% weight of the sector. I feel like that's gone up a little bit. I've got to look at my notes, but definitely the most important sector. The most important part of the sector overall is the semiconductor space. But it had a good day. If you look on the right, semiconductors were up 0.9. We see software up 1.6, computer hardware 1.3, communication equipment is a 3.65 overall. So that was the leader today. But let's take a look at the semiconductors, because we see many names that we love on this channel that had performance today, despite everything that was going on around them. What we thought was going to happen today just flat out didn't. And it's such a positive sign going into the holiday weekend, positive sign for what we could see next week. NVIDIA is up 0.9. Broadcom up 0.3. You know, I have all three of these AMD in my triangle stack, so I'd love to see that. AMD up 3.5%. Intel, another great day for Intel, 5% growth. You know, I'm a big fan of Intel. I'm a big fan of what they're trying to do and building out kind of the American semiconductors, the American fab here. And I'm an investor in Intel as well, to be clear, but I'm a big fan overall. Micron, here we go, 0.44. I don't know if you feel the same way I do, but I actually really feel good about that 0.44 based on everything we've seen with Micron, the pressure that the stock has been under, how it's performed the last 2 days, what it looked like coming into the market. I will take a negative 0.44, less than 0.5% down heading into the holiday weekend. That's a win for me. I'm almost going to be so bullish to say that's almost like 3 days in a row of like positive win. So unless we get some major headline over the weekend, unless we get more concerns from a geopolitical perspective, more tension, more risk, or something else that's related to the memory trade, I am bullish enough to think I think Micron's going to have a strong day on Monday. I think we're gonna jump again. I think this stock has found its footings. It's starting to, especially with all of the stories that are hitting the market right now. I want to jump over and show you that right now, because this is the biggest one that I think caused a lift in the stocks overall. Kind of what we saw, the pressure in the morning and then the rebound that we saw around midday. This was a big part of it. When I look at all the headlines, this is this sentiment in this article. I think that the community, analyst community, investor community is starting to realize we had an overreaction with Google's TurboQuant. It was a miscalculation, as the author says here on Market Beat. I'm going to go in and tell you why, but I'm going to pull down, and I love the headline here that this virtuous signal was mistaken for a vicious one. Basically says that Google's TurboQuant, the efficiencies that it promises, the high advanced compression method that it has, that it was a reaction. The market's reaction was immediate and straightforward. You can see that less memory, less storage, pressure was on the memory stocks. We saw that. However, Bank of America analyst goes on to say that logic was a fundamental misunderstanding of how the technological progress works. Bank of America analysts called the selling pressure unwarranted, highlighting a more sophisticated reality overall, that rather than destroying demand, this goes back to the Jevons paradox we talked about, it creates a virtuous cycle of innovation. Really good parallel to the MP3 player here, and how that compression, it didn't kill music. We actually saw an expansion of music consumption and a lot of different innovation that came in because of that. And music then became to be utilized and consumed in many different formats. You were able to take it with you in many different places, such as the iPhone or the iPods, all of that. It was innovation that came from that. But when we get down in here around specifically why the article calls out Micron and calls out Western, interestingly enough, those were the two were kind of flat today. This article lifted the sector, in my opinion, but the two they specifically called out didn't get as much lift as the others. But I'm going to show you some other headlines that maybe help you understand that as well. But it mentions that Micron is at the epicenter of the market's fear and the AI opportunity. I said that yesterday, how everything that's happening around, TurboQuant kind of hits Micron harder than the others. But the the author goes on to mention that the biggest sign of the bear thesis not being valid or evidence against it is the fact that Micron's supply is sold out for 26, and we know they're right now negotiating 27, 28 supply. So that is the one biggest sign over it all. And then the analyst confidence. So Wall Street remains overwhelmingly bullish in Micron. The recent pullback, in this author's opinion, he says, creates an attractive entry point into a leader at the forefront of AI hardware build out. We know when you look at the fair value price for Micron, when you look at the average 12-month price for Micron, in fact, I can pull it up right now as I'm jumping. Look at that. Average fair value, it's a 29% upside from where the stock trades today, and we're at a 43.5% upside from where the stock trades today based on the average price target. So that's why they're saying it's at such a attractive entry point right now. But he does go on to talk about Western Digital too, and how they are foundational to the AI ecosystem, that there's massive data sets known as data lakes, and you need Western Digital because of the hard disk drive, the solid state drives. They're the bedrock of the data centers. Bedrock right here, I'll highlight, of the data centers. And he mentioned they're an essential infrastructure, that the need for storage infrastructure will only grow. And Western Digital's recent positive earnings represent and underscore the health of its core business. Again, the investment case for them, the market appears to be overlooking the less glamorous, but a central role of mass data storage in the AI supply chain. This makes Western Digital a value-oriented play on the same earning and long-term trend. So we've talked about how HDDs are not seen as sexy as HBM. No doubt about it, but they are essential. You need to store these massive data sets, and that's what HDDs are. And we know the technology, both that Seagate and Western Digital are pushing. I'm going to drop a video this weekend that looks specifically at the HDDs and some of the moves that Sony made as well that signal the demand and the shift in that market. So make sure you turn on your notifications and catch my weekend videos as well. But I want to just highlight this at the end. It's seeing the forest through the trees. The biggest piece here at the end I just call out is investors who can look past the immediate noise. The current market dislocation in these fundamental chip makers that they calls out, in this case, Micron, Western Digital, but we also see it with Seagate and SanDisk. But if you can look past that, it represents a moment of opportunity, not a signal of structural decline. So that was a major article that came out that impacted the stocks today, that helped kind of lift them overall. But there was a second article that came out that also affected Micron and SanDisk. And I'm going to jump over and show you that as well, because it was a bit of a bullish article from Mizuho, and it also kind of reset the stage for price targets that they're moving. So Mizuho says Micron and SanDisk sell-off is overdone. It reiterates outperform. And if you call down here, you can see that they maintain outperform ratings for both stocks, Micron and SanDisk, with price targets of 530 and 710 respectively, reflecting a view that the current down draw may present a buying opportunity rather than a signal of a structural peak. So there's the second group of analysts that reiterated the same sentiment, that the drawdown is overdone, that where these stocks are priced today represents a significant buying opportunity based on the structural demand that we see in the marketplace. So guys, I've been saying that all along, and I'll remind you, I'm not a financial advisor. I've always said that I'm just a guy with 30 years of investing. In my opinion, these stocks are well undervalued. The price has shot them down to the point where they're a very attractive entry point. But make sure you do your own research. Make sure you do your own analysis before you add any asset to your own portfolio. I'm just sharing with you some of the analyst sentiment that's in the market overall. But let's see what the stocks did today overall and how they responded from articles and just what they looked like throughout the day. So let me pull that up and let me move that over so you can see. But here's Micron. Here's Micron. We can see Micron actually closed down $1.61, a little under 0.5%. As I mentioned, I will take that, guys. If you look at the pressure it had, here's where it opened. Look at the immediate pressure we had. So we closed yesterday 368. Within the first 5 minutes, we opened at 341. So we were down $27 immediately when the stock opened. And in that first 5-minute window, it closed at 346. But it found support. And look at that nice rally overall that came up. And then it just kind of hovered and just sat in this support level of about 366 throughout the day, jumped down a little bit. So that is a nice, it looked like we have found this support floor for Micron headed into the weekend, about 366 overall. Let's see what the other stocks did. SanDisk put points on the board today. So they were one of the ones that broke out. And I think that Mizuho article was helping it. So it's kind of shifting its price target again, 710 in this case. They're trading at 701, but it was the positive sentiment for the stock overall from the analysts from Mizuho that helped kind of give a little more momentum for SanDisk. So finished about $9, 1.28 on the day. But again, you could see same thing. We had closed yesterday, 692. They opened today at 641. So immediately down, right? But then look at that strong conviction right after. Look at those huge buying jumps in the next 5 minutes afterwards for SanDisk. Jumped back up again. We know the high today overall, I think it got up to about 706 maybe. 706 was the high today. So it got up quite a bit, rallied down, but then found support in the finish as well and finished at over 700. So nice to see the stock up over 700 again. We know the average price target right here is 770, so about 10% upside. We know there's many more people that are significantly bullish on their price target with SanDisk, but that's how they performed. If we take a look at Seagate was the other one that also had broke away today overall. It had a 6.24%, $6.24 growth, 1.5%, closed at 429. Same phenomenon. Look at that. That closed yesterday at 423. First 5 minutes, it opened at 400. So not as steep of a loss as the other two, but same pattern. I mean, under pressure right away, but then major conviction right away. That's what the different piece was today that we haven't seen, that we didn't see last week, that we see it on Monday this week, is there wasn't buyers that stepped right back immediately and brought and gave support to these stocks and got them back up to where they closed yesterday, got them back up to that level, that support floor where we closed, and even beyond with Seagate. So, and then the last one to round that out was just Western. Western was the one that was different today. It was down 276, about 1%. But again, similar phenomenon. We know Western kind of finished a little better yesterday. It was up, but it closed. If you do look at yesterday, it had a little bit of a bearish close at the end. So maybe that was a sign. But they all sold off right when we came in. But they closed at 297. First 5 minutes, it opened at 279. Not as steep. And they just kind of hung around and they got back up to support as well. Great to see. Didn't get all the way back up to where we closed yesterday. But the pattern was the same that we saw for all of them. They immediately sold off. That's what we expected, but they didn't continue to sell. They didn't continue to get lower and lower. They found support. They found buyers that stepped in, and that was a huge move that we saw for the memory trade today. It wasn't what we were expecting, but it was a big move. They all followed a similar pattern, which was interesting. They all faced resistance right at the opening bell with significant drops, but they all found support. Buyers stepped back in. They drove these stocks back up to the floor where we closed on yesterday. They drove them back up to that support level where we ended yesterday, and that was great to see. To me, that is a real bullish sign that we're getting back into strong, continuing positive momentum. That's a strong sign of conviction overall for me, is that those stocks got bought back up immediately. Some of them continue to grow over where we finished yesterday after the strong day they had yesterday. You remember my thumbnail yesterday was strong conviction. Some of them put more points up on the board over that day. The others kind of rallied right around it. For me, Micron at 0.44 down, I'll take it. Western Digital was down by 0.93, but still they had a strong day yesterday overall. So I think this is a good sign for this group to move into the holiday weekend. So the takeaway today was clean. The signal was clean today. Today was not just a day where memory stocks held up better than expected. It was a day where the market made a decision. It looked at the same risks, the same headlines, the same uncertainty, and instead of selling the group, it started reallocating inside of the group. And when that happens, that's usually where the real signal is. Because at this point right now, the market isn't trying to figure out if the trade works for memory. It's trying to decide who are the real winners in the memory group and who are the winners that are going to be those that are winning long-term in the memory trade overall. Guys, I hope you liked the video. Have a great night. I'll see you in the next one.